Welcome to the Performance Collective, where I bring together experts across the running, fitness, and human performance space to share insights, experiences, and practical strategies for improving performance. Hosted by me, Hannah Witt, a USCA certified running coach and athlete success and operations manager, this podcast features conversations with elite athletes, coaches, nutritionists, chiropractors, race directors, and industry leaders. Whether you're chasing a personal best, returning from injury, or looking to better understand the science behind training and recovery, the Performance Collective offers actionable insights to help you train smarter and perform at your best. Today's guest is one of the most respected endurance athletes in ultra running, John Kelly. John is best known for becoming only the second person in history to finish the Barkley Marathons 3 times, completing one of the world's most difficult races in 2017, 2023, and 2024. He's also set records on iconic routes like the Pennine Way and built a reputation for thriving in rugged, technical terrain where strategy matters just as much as fitness. Outside of running, John has a PhD in electrical engineering focused on brain-computer interfaces and works in data science and AI, giving him a uniquely analytical approach to endurance and problem solving. In this conversation, we talk about what makes Barkley so difficult, how the course has evolved, and why there's essentially zero margin for error. We also get into growing up in East Tennessee, the toughness and culture of the Appalachian Mountains, Hurricane Helene recovery efforts, and the idea of voluntary adversity through endurance sports. As someone who also grew up running in the Appalachians and now lives in North Carolina, this conversation felt especially meaningful to me. Please enjoy my conversation with John Kelly. John, thanks so much. I didn't know you were in Boone.
Yeah, I'm up in that area, kind of right on the Tennessee-North Carolina border there. So it's
that's cool. I grew up in Mountain City, so
okay.
Yeah. Are you kind of in between Mountain City? You don't have to divulge any information if you don't want to, but I'm just thinking of 421 between Mountain City and Boone and making that drive many, many times.
Yeah, I know that quite well. My favorite ice cream place is in Mountain City. So
which one is it?
The 421 Creamery.
Oh goodness.
We swing up that we go out to Watauga Lake quite a bit, and we swing through Mountain City and stop by there.
That's awesome. Have you run on the Doe Recreation trails in Mountain City? It's like in Doe Valley, obviously, but I've seen a lot of events for there.
Have you been? They've got an ultra there now that I haven't done, but I've run up there a few times.
That's so cool. Yeah, I've seen that ultra advertised, and I thought that would be really, really cool to do. But yeah, just thinking back, almost everyone I talk to, I feel like I have to mention Hurricane Helene because it was such a big thing that happened here recently. And I know that when we evacuated, we wanted to, just because my grandparents are in Kentucky, we wanted to like go by 421 Mountain City, Bristol, and then up to Kentucky through there. But we could not even get, like, 421 was impassable. They cut it or shut it down, and crazy what happened there. Were you guys affected?
Yeah, they're actually right now in the progress finally of fully repairing our road. It was completely washed out by the storm, and I was incredibly impressed by how quickly they got it back to be passable. But since then, that initial phase was high priority, but it was left as just one lane and slowly still falling down the hillside. So that was the lower priority. They finally started that month or two ago, and they're making some good progress on that. It's been interesting. As an engineer, a lot of this damage, particularly to roads and infrastructure that I saw, while it was terrible, there was also that part of me that said, that's interesting. How are they going to fix that one? And so I've gotten to see the progress on how they've built this road and effectively kind of built the hillside back out to be able to support this road. So they're doing a great job, and we'll actually have a 2-lane street here sometime this summer.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate how you come to it with an engineering approach. I almost think I immediately thought of starting the home buying process and learning so much about homes and learning about foundations rotting and things like that, and how places, like I'm thinking about a place that I saw on Zillow in Valley Crucis, like the joists were basically rotten, and this house had, the price had been like rock bottom because of that. And I was like, how on earth can they fix that? And I didn't know that they have literal like things that can kind of bolster up the house while they fix things like that. But that just, I can definitely appreciate you coming to fixing roads and things and that kind of mindset. Like, how are you going to handle just the rock underneath being undermined and things like that? And I saw that firsthand too, where I am, because on Beach Mountain, above and below where our home is, was washed out completely. We couldn't evacuate for a while, and just wash it. It was basically like a ravine underneath both sections. So seeing them navigate that, because we didn't have anything else to do, so walking up and down the road, checking up on progress and things. So that was, yeah, even when it was all washed out and it was basically like a bit of road with nothing underneath it, right? It was like asphalt, nothing supporting because it had washed out literally underneath it. People were still driving over it because they wanted to evacuate. And yeah. So, I mean,
there's the long-term way of fixing things right, like they're doing on the road here. But then a lot of my favorite was going out to some of these affected communities immediately after and seeing what I affectionately refer to as redneck engineering, just resourcefulness and ingenuity. There's one community out Pogie, Tennessee, by Watauga Lake, where you drive up the road and you'd see where they'd kind of rig together 2x4s to prop up downed power lines, or cut trees to use as posts to prop up the power lines. And then there was a spot, the bridge was washed out, and they had backed 2 flatbed farm trailers into the river from both sides to touching each other, and then reinforced that with some of the rubble from the demolished bridge. And had a you could drive a car across it. It was solid.
Wow, Lordy, Pogie. I think about Pogie because I grew up in Johnson County, and my sisters, they drove out there one time, and they said they saw somebody drive a 4-wheeler out their front door, and they saw a kid out in the front yard holding a knife, just chilling by itself. So Pogie's a very, very interesting place. Yeah, that's rough country. And I can say that because I'm a local, and those are my people. So but anyway, you're actually not originally from like the Boone area, right? You grew up kind of, I saw Oak Ridge High School. So
yeah, I was out kind of middle of nowhere, hour northwest of Knoxville, Morgan County, where the Barkley Marathons takes place. I actually grew up right across the street from that. And then, I went to high school in nearby Oak Ridge, which was, the big city.
Right. Another fun story, and this is not like a podcast about me, this is about you, but I just keep thinking, just because mutual areas we've lived in. But I remember in 6th grade, our social studies teacher saying, because it was literally 5th grade, that's when the Twin Towers bombing happened and all that horrible stuff. But in 6th grade, I remember our social studies teacher saying, you know what, with Oak Ridge right down the road, they'd probably take that out first and we'd be gone in an instant. And I'm like, that's very comforting information. So yeah, for people who don't know, Oak Ridge is what exactly, it's not chemical engineering, or maybe it's a little bit of everything, but what exactly is Oak Ridge known for in terms of like?
So it was created as a secret city out of nowhere, out of nothing during World War II, as part of the Manhattan Project for enriching the fuel for the first atomic bombs. I mean, if you've watched Oppenheimer, that they refer to it a few times, where they're putting the marbles in the bowl, and that's the fuel that Oak Ridge has enriched. So during the Cold War, I think it was number 2 on the Soviet hit list of where they would bomb first, right behind DC.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, it's now a lot of great general purpose, really good research that goes on at those labs. But yeah, there's also a lot of the nuclear research still happens as well.
Kind of growing up there, did that shape your decision to go into engineering?
A bit, probably. Yeah, I mean, it had a real good school system. It's when my parents sent me to high school there, and I had the opportunity to do some internships at those labs. So it was good. And yeah, actually, kind of connect the dots there. When my wife and I were looking at where to move back to in the area, kind of close to our families, but up in the mountains, the Boone area, Watauga County, came to mind because I'd run against Watauga High School when I was doing cross country. So that's kind of how I knew of this area.
That's cool. Yeah. I think for meets and things, I played sports in high school. We were out in your area too, obviously, because y'all are in our conference, I believe. But that's really cool how so you kind of decided on Boone because it's close to both of your sets of parents, families.
Yeah, my parents are in East Tennessee. My wife's are East North Carolina, so good spot.
Okay. Well, I have to ask, since you are in Boone, have you ever run with Zap Crew?
No, I haven't. And unfortunately, they're shutting down.
Yeah.
So it's a pro marathon team that was based here, and I think that this was their last year.
Yeah, I was an intern there back in 2013. So back when they actually had a facility on Blackberry Road, which is kind of near, well, it's Blowing Rock area. But we would run a lot like in Moses Cone, Bass Lake, Rich Mountain. Those are really awesome places to run. Do you hit up those areas often?
Yeah, I love to get out there. Running up to Flat Top Tower is one of my favorites.
That was, yeah, I feel like I did that all the time and probably dug myself into a bit of a hole in cross country season because I was there during the summer, but that will make you strong faster than anything for sure. The view is gorgeous. But yeah, so you mentioned Barkley Marathons. Obviously, I'm kind of tiptoeing around all the major things and kind of getting your backstory, but you're kind of a big deal, right? So the Barkley Marathons, 3-time finisher. Did I get that right? Have you competed since 2024 at Barkley?
Yeah, we've done it the past 2 years. They made the course quite a bit more difficult. I was the only one to finish fun run last year. And then this year I made a careless mistake early on that really cost me. And but then only one person again finished the fun run this year. And the fun run is 3 loops. The full race is 5. And so it's in a tough spot at the moment in terms of the course difficulty.
Okay, for people who don't know that much about Barkley, obviously it's in Morgan County, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yep,
is
it's out in Frozen Head State Park.
Okay, Tennessee, and pretty rough country, very woodsy, mountainous, obviously, but its story is pretty interesting too, and it's founded by a really cool guy named Lazarus. And yeah, so can you explain a little bit about Barkley and just its notoriety? A lot of people know about it, obviously, but from your perspective, how did you hear about it, and what stood out about it to you? Obviously, you grew up very close by.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, didn't know much about it other than some crazy people came and ran around in the woods once a year. It wasn't until much later in life that I really started to learn much about it and be intrigued by it. And it was still a few years after that before I even got the idea in my head that maybe I could do it myself. So it is this race put on in these incredibly steep, just an anomaly, really, in terms of how steep they are when you look at the surrounding area. They stick out on a profile map. Um, and it is almost entirely off trail. It's unmarked. There's no GPS or any other such technology allowed. You get a $10 Casio watch from Walmart, and that's it. And so you've got the directions and a map and compass, and you navigate the course from that. And it is each loop is, they call it 20 miles. Each loop is roughly 25, 26 miles. The latest iteration of the course is about 15,000 feet per loop. And you have 60 hours to complete this. And it is through this incredibly rough, steep, rocky, briar covered backwoods terrain. Only, geez, now what is it? 20, trying to remember now. I think 22 people have finished. I was the 17th finisher, and then we had 2 years recently where we added 5 more people. So yeah, 22 have finished this race in over 40 years now. Jared Campbell and I are the only ones that have finished it 3 times. Jared's finished 4. I've finished 3, and Brett Mounty has finished 2 as the multi-time finishers. So the race keeps getting more difficult as the participants improve, as the technology improves, as we get better gear, as we get better knowledge. We learn how to train, we learn how to take this on, and the goal is to always keep it right there at the edge if possible, so that we're always trying to push that limit and find what we're capable of. It's a very delicate balance to do that, especially these days, as I feel we're really kind of approaching what that limit is, and every little change to the course can make a big difference.
So your previous years, how have the changes, you said they were significant and it's a lot tougher now. In what way? In terms of steepness, in terms of difficulty navigating, particularly rough terrain?
Yeah, so there are a number of variables that, I mean, the course difficulty can just be adding a bit more distance, a bit more elevation gain, adding another checkpoint to the course. With the checkpoints are these books that are at set locations out along the course that you tear a page out to prove you went to each checkpoint. So just tiny changes like that, when you add it up to 5 loops, can really affect the difficulty. There, in 2 years, we had 8 total finishes, but I think none of those finishes had more than an hour and a half to spare. It was everyone right there near the cutoff. And so if you do something that adds 20 minutes per loop, then none of those people finish. And so it's very tricky to make these changes and to keep the course new and challenging, and kind of right at that perfect edge of what's possible without going over. For example, this year there was just a creek crossing added at the start finish, which that might sound kind of trivial, but when you factor in either stopping to change your socks and shoes, or the weight and time lost to dealing with soaking wet feet coming out of that, talking probably 5 minutes per loop. Add up over 5 loops, and that's 25 minutes. And so just little things like that can really affect this. But you look at how far it has come in the past 40 years, even in the past 10 years, really, the course looks very different and is much more difficult in terms of the elevation gain, the distance. And, the other side of that is, back in the day when they started this, they didn't have running vests or racing nutrition or trail shoes or LED headlamps. They're out there with like old carbide mining lamps, or the big 4D cell mag lights that weighed 5 pounds and lasted for 30 minutes.
Wow. I'm just thinking of, is it national forest or is it private land? I'm just thinking, how, if it was private land, then how did he get all these people to agree to that? Because it's Tennessee and they're not going to do that. freely?
No, it's all it's almost all state park. There's a little bit where it ventures outside of the state park onto TWRA land, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. Um, but that is a delicate balance there as well. It goes through some sensitive ecological areas. You're not allowed off trail in the park other than during the race. And the limit on the number of runners and really the number of total loops is due to going through these off trail areas that are normally not publicly accessible.
So even, from an athlete's perspective, obviously it's very, very challenging, especially when it gets progressively harder when the routes change. But I imagine for the race director, it's very challenging to navigate those obstacles that you just described and trying to make sure everybody's safe, make sure that ecosystems, they stay protected. I'm thinking about something as simple as a little bit of litter that somebody may drop something. Is that policed a lot in terms of people making sure that they don't drop anything and kind of leave a footprint?
So I mean, it's a small field and a carefully selected field. So they do a really good job of kind of doing that selection and filtering for people who are responsible for themselves and for the park and the ecosystem in which it takes place. So I think it's quite remarkable that in 40 years of doing this race, every single runner has self-extracted. There's never had to be a rescue party sent out to get anyone.
Wow, that is impressive. Wow.
Yeah, it speaks to this having the small field and being able to carefully vet everyone that is going out there.
I mean, it is a rigorous selection process. Can you kind of describe what that looks like?
Well, at first, people have to figure out how to apply. It's the date and the application process is not publicly available, and that is itself part of the filtering process. That's the people who really want to be out there and really have the mindset to take this race on. They're not going to mind a bit of discomfort and difficulty finding that information out. It's not a state secret, but it's something that you have to put a bit of work into in finding those details out. And so that actually helps the odds of those people who do put in that effort and makes that selection process from there actually feasible. So there's not just 10,000 applications that they're reading through, but it has especially become more difficult in the past decade as the race has gained more visibility, more notoriety. Kind of started with a Netflix documentary that came out about 10 years ago. And so to be honest, if I were first applying with the credentials that I was applying with back then, I wouldn't get in. Now, people have to have some solid ultra running experience under their belt and be able to show that they're prepared to take on this terrain and be able to put forward a good effort on it.
So in terms of the race itself, are there like race aid stations, or are you have to be self-sufficient the whole time?
So you can receive aid between each loop. So again, there's 5 loops, and so effectively you can receive aid 4 times during the race if you do the full 5 loops. There are also a couple water drops on the course if they're not frozen over, but otherwise, yeah, it's just you're effectively about 12 hours on your own between each support point, and it's a bit difficult also to kind of those support points returning to camp between each loop. It's a bit of a siren song. It's so enticing. It's so easy to choose to stay in the comfort of camp and quit and not go back out. So you almost have to come in to those support points, to those aid stations with the mindset that you're blasting through them and you're continuing on and you're minimizing how much actual support you get there, because you don't want to get too comfortable.
Right. So in terms of recent performances, you mentioned that you made a careless error. What was that error?
I missed a turn, and I kind of it was towards the end of the first loop, and I was already thinking through in my head what I wanted to do during that loop transition between my first and second loop, and getting my plan nailed down, because you want to come in, and this is true in any race, you want to come in to the aid station knowing exactly what you need to do so that you can do it and get out of there. You don't want to come into the aid station and be sitting there trying to think like, okay, what do I need to do next? Do I need to do this or that other thing? You need a plan, execute it, and get back out there. And so I was making sure that I had that plan nailed down in my head. And while I was my mind was distracted by that I was careless, and I actually followed an older version of the course. And I would have caught myself pretty quick, but there was like everything, not so many things out there look the same. Like you're in these deep forests that have been logged and strip mined and everything else, and it looks so similar everywhere. And you can't look out from the trees and see reference points of mountains in the distance to get a bearing on where you are. And so I missed this turn, followed this old version of the course, but then after that, there was another turn that looked identical to the one I was supposed to take. And I went out along it, and there was a pond where it was supposed to be. The bearing, my compass bearing, was exactly the way it was supposed to be. There was an odd shaped tree where it was supposed to be. There were these rock formations where they were supposed to be. It looked identical to where I was supposed to be. And so I spent like an hour over there thinking that I couldn't find the book. I couldn't find the checkpoint. Couldn't figure out what was going wrong before I finally turned and backtracked. So that was a fatal mistake for me, especially with as difficult as the course is now. You can't afford to do something like that.
Did that mistake and backtracking, did that just add too much time and you were over time, or what happened?
Yeah, I came in, I went out, I did my second loop, but then I came in over time to start my third loop. And so if I hadn't have made that mistake, I probably I would have gotten another fun run. I would have probably finished 3 loops. I still wouldn't have gone on to do the full 5. It's with where it is now, it really, for me, it would require an absolute perfect race. And it's something like Barkley. It's almost the point to me that it can't be perfect, that you're going to make a mistake, that something's going to go wrong. And that's part of it, is how you respond to that, how you're able to adapt and overcome those mistakes. But there's zero margin for error at this point.
Is that part of what attracts you to ultra racing in general, is putting yourself in a really difficult position and seeing, can I get myself out of this? Or is there some other kind of incentive?
It is. It's intriguing to me on Barkley now, even I legitimately don't know if I can finish. And it's kind of gone back to where it was when I was initially doing the race, where I was driven of this kind of search of the unknown, of what I'm capable of. And it's, if we know that something is too difficult and impossible, then why do it? We get frustrated, we quit. If we know that it's easy, if we know that we can do it, why do it? We get bored and we quit. It's those things that we don't quite know one way or the other. And that is intriguing to me. That does motivate me. And so I would like to see what I can do if I really put 100% of myself into preparing and executing this race, and see what I'm capable of. And I think that's also a big part of the value of doing these really difficult things, of putting ourselves in these situations, because for the most part, most of us are fortunate to not have to deal with these extreme difficult circumstances in everyday life. We have food on the table, we're living in a safe community, we're not in a war-torn area or getting chased by predators or anything like that. Like we're living with, relative to most of history, fairly comfortable lives, but there is still a part of us that benefits and learns so much from being in these difficult situations. And I refer to them as voluntary artificial adversity. And it's effectively, it's training for when the real stuff comes, when the stuff like Helene does come, and there is something that is a true challenge, something that we do have to deal with, that we can't just step away from and say, oh, no thanks, never mind, I'm not going to finish this one.
So with your very AI driven engineering background and profession, it's almost like at the opposite end of the spectrum with this survivalist, primitive kind of race setup. Do you feel like you have both of those sides inside of you and you like to explore both, or is it just it's just a good departure from your everyday life to explore that very primitive, out in the woods, if you make a wrong turn, you're screwed sort of setup?
Well, it is definitely good to be forcibly disconnected from technology sometimes, to get out there and not only to not have service, to not have a computer, to not have a phone, to be away from the screen, but also just the mental focus. Like day-to-day life, even if we turn our screens off, even if we, put up an away message on our work email and ignore it for a few days, those things still come to mind, and we're still thinking about them. We're still distracted by them. When you get out there and you're just focused on like moving forward and staying safe, and like, how am I going to make it up the next hill and to the next checkpoint? How am I going to finish this next loop? You're stripped down to the moment, and you have to focus on the moment. And all those distractions and those concerns for the past or the future, they're gone. It's just you and your own resources right at that moment, and what's in front of you, and how do you take that next step forward. And that is incredibly valuable in itself, but then also from an analytical perspective, kind of the mindset it takes to do these things. A lot of people that have been successful at Barkley do have science and engineering backgrounds, and I think we do view it as another puzzle to solve. It's a complex optimization problem. We have all these variables, we have all these constraints, and how do we fit the pieces together to make this possible? So that part of it, I think, is enticing and aligns pretty well with my kind of engineering mindset.
So what would the ratio of how much you're running versus you're walking versus hiking, like what does that, when people hear about Barkley, they think, are they running the whole time? To me, if you're not on trail most of the time, it's impossible to keep up fairly good clip of running, right? Because people who aren't familiar with northeastern Tennessee, or this is not truly northeastern, I guess more, well, maybe between central and northeastern, but anyway, with the woods,
it's northwest East Tennessee.
Northwest East, there you go, perfect, love it. But it's, to me, I imagine, just because playing in the woods where I grew up, you've got year-round leaf cover, basically. You can trip and fall and face plant pretty immediately. How much running do you actually do during that particular race?
You have to run every opportunity you get, which is pretty much all the flats and almost all the downs. And yeah, that does mean flying down these descents that are covered in leaves and rocks and trees and roots and everything else. and that's tricky. And it is a bit surprising to me, to be honest, that the more people haven't gotten injured doing that. But it is something that you have to uh, take advantage of gravity and use it when you can. The uphills, of course, you're power hiking, as we say in ultra running. You're still trying to move it as quick of a clip as you can without redlining and completely blowing up. So, if you figure that roughly, I don't know, 45% of the race is uphill, 45% is downhill, and 10% is somewhat flat, then you're running maybe 55% of the time.
Okay. I'm thinking of the documentary that you mentioned, and I'm picturing it's like clear cut. I think there was like a power line in this particular section going up a mountain. I'm seeing people like on their hands on knees coming up. Their legs are all torn up because it was straight briars the whole time. But I imagine there's a lot of sections like that. It's just really, really rough out there. But, I'm thinking now about your experience in the Pennine Way in the UK. And I know I actually work for Maximum Mileage, which is based out of the United Kingdom, and in Wiltshire, actually. And obviously, geography, everything is much different there. How would you describe what that race and what that trail system is like?
So I didn't truly understand what a bog was when I moved to the UK. And the best way I can really describe it to people is it's like Hollywood quicksand, like what you would see in a movie, except instead of sand, it is just black muck. And you can step in these bogs and I've stepped in them and gone past my waist before. And it can be difficult to get out. And there's been times that you kind of have to like slowly lean backwards and let your body kind of float and try to reach back to solid ground. So it is, yeah, it's tough. It is difficult terrain. It's not nearly as steep as Barkley or as most kind of mountain ultras go. But the boggy terrain is incredibly difficult. The weather is, you're pretty much never going to get a window of weather to do the entire Pennine Way in nice conditions. When I set what is currently the FKT on the Pennine Way, my last day I had a hailstorm that I was running through. So it's tricky and it's very different. And some parts there's a well-defined trail, and others you are just kind of relying on people's knowledge and some little visual cues here and there of where the kind of best line is to be able to maybe actually continue running and not step into one of these bogs.
That's wild with the bogs. I actually grew up in Shady Valley, Tennessee, which has natural cranberry bogs. And so I'm familiar with that, but they weren't as extensive as that sounds for sure. How did you handle the hail? What did you wear? How big was the hail?
It was, your marble to golf ball size hail. And you put on the rain gear and put your head down and carry on. I kind of like to think that at that point, look at the silver lining of it, and maybe it's helping me stay awake and alert a bit better. So, and that's another thing at Barkley. A lot of the rough conditions, yeah, they look really bad. But for the people that are out there that are capable of finishing Barkley, they're more of an inconvenience rather than something that is truly going to hinder them from finishing. With that said, there are of course conditions that are going to slow anyone down, but for the most part, you just kind of got to put your head down and carry on through them and look for whatever silver lining you can.
Right. So I'd like to, before we wrap up, I'd like to know more about your experience on the Appalachian Trail. Obviously, where we live, you've got multiple points that you can jump on it pretty easily. So that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was an incredible experience going for the speed record on the Appalachian Trail. I made it all the way up, just short of the main border, well ahead of record pace. And then I had an injury in the White Mountains where I basically just, my ankles stopped functioning. It wasn't like it hurt. It wasn't like it was sore or that it was difficult to move. I would sit there and I would look at my ankle and I would tell my foot to move and just nothing would happen. No response. Like it was paralyzed. So unfortunately, I came up a bit short there, but the experience was still incredible to get to go out there and see so much of that trail, to interact with so many amazing people that are a part of this community. It's a trail that had intrigued me ever since I was a kid. And you know, I hardly left East Tennessee as a kid other than going to Myrtle Beach each year for family vacation. So to go out on that trail and think, wow, this goes all the way to Maine. And like Maine might as well have been Narnia to me when I was a kid. And so it was incredible to get the opportunity to experience that. We raised a lot of money for Hurricane Helene relief as part of that as well. So while the outcome came up a bit short, it was still something that I definitely would not take back. I'm glad that we did that and got to have that experience.
I remember visiting Backbone Rock all the time growing up. You know where Backbone Rock is in Damascus?
Yep.
Well, my sister and I, we just started hiking on a trail that was there and thought, okay, well, maybe it ends over that hill. Oh, maybe it ends over that hill. And then we realized, because we finally saw a sign that it was the Appalachian Trail and that wasn't going to end very soon. So yeah, it always has had that, like you said, Narnia kind of quality about it. But yeah, I even think about growing up in Shady Valley. It crosses over, I think, the mountain between Shady and Bristol, I believe, which is, we've been on that all the time. So yeah, it's always been this intriguing thing, and definitely I'd hope to run more of it at some point. It's rough to run it where you pop on it near, like, in Elk Park, I believe. Have you tried that? Well, you've tried the whole thing, but Elk Park going towards Watauga Lake, I've run that before and I fell 3 times. And I only did about 13 miles. So I don't even know how I managed that. But
they're through the Roan Highlands. That's one of the most beautiful stretches of the trail.
Gorgeous. So lovely. But
Two of them. You've got the Roan Highlands and Grayson Highlands right here in this area. I mean, to me, really, you've got, from what I saw, those two in the White Mountains are my favorite stretches. And so that is incredible to have that here. And yeah, I mean, up in Shady Valley, you're nestled there between the Iron Mountain Trail and the Appalachian Trail on the two sides of the valley. And that's a beautiful spot. And what I think people don't think about when they think of the Appalachians, they think of the small mountains. The big mountains are out west. They're the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada, or you go over to the Alps and the Pyrenees. And yeah, those mountains are taller, but in terms of steepness and how rugged the terrain is, like the Appalachian Trail has a higher average grade than the Pacific Crest Trail out west or the Continental Divide Trail going through the Rockies. And the Appalachian Trail was built for hikers. It is going along these ridge lines to all the summits, directly over the top of them, roots, rocks, incredibly rugged technical terrain. most of the trails out west, they're built for pack animals. So you have these long, sweeping, smooth switchbacks that have much lower grades, and you're going over the passes instead of going over the summits. So it's difficult, and it is a truly rugged experience.
I'm thinking back to when Helene happened, and I know just because we ran on it all the time in college, but the Virginia Creeper Trail, the section that I love the most between Damascus and White Top, was completely destroyed. But that area, that's also the Appalachian Trail crosses, I feel like at least, well, you see it at least twice, but in that particular section of the Virginia Creeper Trail. But do you know, was that affected by Hurricane Helene, or is it completely passable?
So this year, between Damascus and going this Damascus to almost Mount Rogers, I mean basically Damascus to White Top, that is closed for repairs currently. Last year it was still open, so it was kind of one of those stretches where it was damaged. Not damaged so much that they had to close it, but now it's closed because of the repairs that they're doing to it. So you actually go up from Damascus and you join the Iron Mountain Trail and the traditional, the original AT route going from Damascus up to Mount Rogers.
Okay. I wonder how that, well, I guess perhaps because the Virginia Creeper Trail was basically following the river the whole way.
Yeah, it got demolished. Just absolutely. I tried to run a little bit of it out of Damascus not long after Helene, and I mean I didn't make it very far. I mean it's just wiped off the face of the earth essentially. And all those bridges and everything were wiped out. I do have they've got the Jeb Stuart Highway along, which runs alongside it there. They've got that reopened now, and I drove that probably a month or so ago, and they're doing some great work on the Creeper Trail. They are getting it back in shape, putting the trail back in place and putting new bridges up. So they will get that back open.
That's so good to hear. Those trestles, I'm sure they were all destroyed, and there's so many on that side because it crosses over the river so many times. But
yeah, I mean, what they're using in so many places now, and what that rigged up bridge in Pogey, what they eventually replaced it with, also is the old flatbed rail cars. So I don't know where they're getting them from, but apparently there's a surplus of those big iron flatbed rail cars somewhere. And they're just
somewhere, we don't know where they're getting them
and using them as bridges.
Have you ever started at White Top and gone on the Virginia Creeper Trail towards North Carolina? It's like you're at the station at White Top, and then you can see in the distance there's a trail, but it gets pretty rough pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I haven't done much of Virginia Creeper, to be honest.
Okay, cool. Well, I was thinking when you were talking about the Appalachian Trail and how it kind of goes over the ridge lines, especially there in Shady. I remember when I was young, just because they put the prison in there in Doe Valley in Johnson County, and that was a new thing, that big prison, they actually would have people escape the prison and they would pick them up on the Appalachian Trail, head towards Shady. And that happened like at least a few times, and we would hear about it. So yeah, have you ever felt afraid on the Appalachian Trail or any trail, or have you had enough support around you that you're just like, I'm fine?
Yeah, typically, I mean, on the Appalachian Trail last year, I had support the whole way. So there were only a couple of really short stretches where I was alone. But when I'm out there, no, that's nothing I've ever thought about. But to be honest, it's if I'm out there solo in winter conditions, there are times where I've got to be sure that I stay focused and aware of my surroundings and don't get myself into a irrecoverable situation, just in terms of the elements of getting stuck out there, where I could die of exposure. but in terms of just safety from people or animals, no, that's never been something I've really had to think about. I haven't done much running in grizzly country though, so.
Yeah, that's true. Have you ever seen black bears?
Oh, I see black bears all the time. There's
I was going to say, how could you escape them? I saw one just outside our window yesterday. So
yeah, that's and there's hardly a time I've gone running through the Smokies and I haven't seen black bear at some point. But you just scared. They're just big scaredy cats, really. I mean, other than the ones that get accustomed to human food or the mama bears. That's the only time I've really had to kind of be cautious is during that time of year where you don't want to come around a corner and surprise a mama bear with a cub.
have you ever gotten in a situation where you're between mama and cubs?
No, fortunately not. I've had a couple standoffs where I come around corner and there's a mama with her cub, and the mama's watching me until the cub gets up a tree, and once that happens, she knows I'm not a threat and doesn't mind that I'm there really even.
Do you just stand and wait, or do you back up? Do you what's your protocol?
It depends on where I am. If it's possible to go around, I'll do that. Otherwise, yeah, slowly back away and to try to find a way to reroute my plans for the day, or just wait it out for a bit. But usually, worst case, I'll kind of go off trail for a little bit to give them a wide berth and get around.
Have you seen wildcats?
I've seen bobcats. Seen something at one point in time that looked like a mountain lion at night, but I can't confirm that. To be honest, I mean, what I worry about more than anything is a copperhead.
Oh yeah.
Rattlesnakes too, but rattlesnakes are actually less aggressive and try to warn you. Copperheads don't have the means to do that.
I'm hearing more and more about panthers up on Grandfather Mountain. So you ever go near there, be careful.
Yeah, I run up Grandfather all the time, but no, I've never heard that or worried about that really. It's that's again something I'd definitely be cautious of if I was taking my kids out in an area like that and keep them close to me. But yeah, at least in this area, I'm not too worried as a grown adult about a cat, unless it's rabid, which is always a possibility.
Always a possibility. So you on the profile trail, is that where you're kind of referring to?
Profile Trail is still closed.
Oh, is it?
Hopefully they'll get that back open soon. But yeah, I mean, when it was open, I'd do that quite a bit. But then also the other side of the mountain, you got the Scout and the Cragway Trail going up from the Parkway, which is a really nice route. It's not nearly as runnable as and friendly as the Profile Trail is.
I'm sorry, I keep thinking of all these places that I've run, and I'm just curious. I've started in Linville, gone up Roxborough, I think it's called, and it gets onto the Parkway, and then there's this, what is the name? It's like a gravel road, and there's like on the map says Rattlesnake Cliffs or something like that. And I'm always thinking, Lord, I'm going to see rattlesnakes here, but I don't know. I'll have to look at that again because I can't remember what. It's
yeah, I haven't spent much time in Linville. I have been told that we actually don't have poisonous snakes this high up. I don't know how true that is, since I grew up in an area that definitely had plenty of poisonous snakes. But yeah, I've never seen one up here at this altitude, and I've been told at least that they aren't up this high.
Well, I hope that is true. Yeah, but I really appreciate your time today. I feel like you you're very, very close to that 100% race day. Everything goes right at Barkley. And I really, because that's what you think it's going to take. I'm sure your assessment is correct, because if anybody studied it inside and out, it's you. But I really hope you have that day and have more days like that. And because I can tell you're really passionate about it. And any races that you do you think you're going to try Appalachian again?
We'll see. I mean, that's just a big time commitment, and a lot has to go right with not just running, but with life, to be able to have a go at that.
Did you ever figure out what happened to your ankles? Was it nerves or what?
Yeah, a lot of theories with it. I am seeing some actual, I feel like, progress the past few weeks. But yeah, there's been a lot of things I've tried, a lot of tests I've had, and a lot of people I've seen. So if I can make progress and just get it back to a spot where I'm comfortable and confident with it, that'll be the key, whatever it is.
Have you seen Marathon Chiropractic in Boone? Dr. Woods, I believe is his name.
Yeah, Ryan Woods. No, I haven't seen him.
I think it might be worth. I'm always prescribed dry needling. I have no idea what's going on with your ankle, but dry needling is such an amazing technique to just like basically reset muscles, tendons, and just get blood flow back to where it needs to be. And just, I've had amazing things. I had a really terrible, awful adductor injury last year, and dry needling was the only thing that got me able to like stand on it without it being horrible. So
yeah. I've had it once, and there again, you know, if it helps, I'll definitely keep doing it. But it's not a pleasant experience.
no, it's not. Especially if you go anywhere near your Achilles, that will light up your life for sure. Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much, and we'll definitely keep track of everything that you're doing. But for people who are listening, where can they find you? Like, what's your Instagram handle?
Random Forest Runner on Instagram. I've also got a website, randomforestrunner.com. I haven't posted that in quite a while, but it's still got a lot of good old race reports and other information on there.
Great. Well, thanks so much, and I really hope you get your ankles figured out. That's really tough, I know.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Enjoyed our conversation.